All right, then. So now we're going to be moving on to the variables section of the course here. So variables are used to store and process data here. So as you can see in this example, they give us that they set a variable to the integer 28. And what we can do with that is that we can print out this variable here. If we were just to run this, oh, I'm sorry, this is something else. Let me copy this over this. Now, if I set the age to 28 here, all right, and I will say I want to print the age, all I'll do is run this and boom, 28, all right? I can change it around to 89, or sorry, 289, for instance, and then I can get 289. So variables, once again, is just used to store and manipulate data, and all we're doing here is just printing out that said stored data within the variable, right? And that's all we were really doing here. You can store different types of data types within variables, strings, integers, floats. Any kind of data type you can store inside a variable, right? And you can change actually the data type even when it's inside the variable. So for instance, right, in this example here, we have a variable set to score, right? It says score is set to the integer 0, right? So if we were to print this out, it would give us a 0, right? But let's say, for instance, right, you want to add 50 points to the score. All you have to do is put a plus next to the variable and put 50. So now what happens is it prints out 50. Why is that? Because 0 plus 50 is 50, right? So that would be the new value that would be stored inside of the variable here, right? Now, what if we move on to down here? What if we want to add 100 to that score value, right? So press run here, it's 150. Why? Because the previous value, right, it was 50, right? And now we want to add 100 to that, right? So 100 plus 50 is 150, right? Same here with 300, right? What's 300 plus 150? 450. So very straightforward and very interesting. And then, you can also use F strings here and stuff like that. You can also divide, multiply. You can manipulate the data in any way you see fit. So now moving down here to the practice I did for this section, all I had to do was, do basic variable work, talking about, um, you know, printing out my name using the variable here. If I run this, you can see it. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't put this in quotations here. uh, Silly mistake. Again, I guess even people who have been working on Python for a while now even make that mistake. So yeah, don't forget your quotation marks. Um, so moving on to the next one, you can see that I had to just print out my favorite number here. I just put 13, and then the whole point if it was to add my favorite number by 10, as you can see, here's the variable. Insert 13. 13 plus 10 is 23, as you can see right here. And then this one, I just had to just print out how many countries I visited and how many countries I plan to visit. This is not accurate. I've only been to like 2 countries. I just wanted to use a big number so everyone can see for the example here. Now moving on to the next section. All right, so in this section we were mainly talking about building LLM prompts with variables. A lot of the examples at the top were a little buggy to print out, so I decided we're probably just gonna look at my problems for this section. So how this is all possible is that you're using a method here, the from helper functions import print LLM response here, and essentially what this does is that it essentially puts a chat bot inside of your code. So I'll explain what I mean by that. But let's look at this first example here, right? So if I were to run this program here, it will print out my most favorite book is 1,000 Ways to Wear a Hat, but I also like 2,002 ways to wear a scarf. So what this did is that it looked at these two variables right here, favorite book and second favorite book, right? And then in this print statement, all I had to do was just put in favorite book and second favorite book, right? And it just inputted the data types accordingly and printed it out like that. Very straightforward stuff, right? Simple to, how we talked about, F strings and stuff like that. Pretty easy. But here's the most interesting part about using this method here. If I had this code right here, where I give it my favorite game, my favorite movie, and my favorite food, right? And then I use the print LLM response, right, where I ask it based on my likes of the favorite game, the movie, and then my favorite food. I wanted to recommend me a new song to listen to, right? Which is kind of weird, but let's run this. And what it will say is it will recommend I listen to Warrior Concerto by the Glitch Mob, right? So once again, this function right here, the print statement is actually it's putting a response out from essentially a chatbot, which I actually had no idea that Python was capable of doing that. But it's just actually extremely interesting to me, at least. I enjoyed this part specifically, and I actually kind of spent longer on this part than I should have. I was too busy geeking out about this and trying all these different combinations, but I will spare you all the I'll spare you guys all my nerding out for this particular problem here. So let's move on to the last section of this course. All right, so in this section here, we were talking about going more in detail about LLM prompts and just doing more work with the AI and the capabilities of it. This section was fairly short, so I just feel as though I'll just go through my practice problems here and then explain to you what I learned in this section like that. So in this first problem, it was pretty straightforward, just using simple F strings and whatnot. In the second question here, we were talking about, okay, how do you make, I want you to write a poem using a specified number of lines here, which I set as 5. And obviously I asked in the prompt, write me a poem with, number of lines, and then it gave me this right here. Moving on to the third one, it's essentially the same thing, asking the AI to print out a specified number of lines, but instead of doing it this way up here, we are going to do it using the get response. So the get response, the way it works is that we're essentially asking the method here to get the response from a prompt, which would be stored in this variable right here. And then we're going to then get that information and then store it inside of here, right? So pretty straightforward, and then print this out, and then we get this poem. So pretty interesting. Once again, I found this entire section to be quite interesting. I enjoyed it a lot. So that's going to be the end for the video. I hope everyone enjoyed, and I will see you guys all in the next week's recap. Take care.